Hello and welcome to the second episode of Talkin Tunes, the show where we talk about music and more music, rock and roll, news, new songs, anything like that takes my fancy and I think is interesting enough to want to share with you guys. So without further ado, the things we're going to be covering today. Sabaton have got a new album announced, they've got a new tour, lots of interesting stuff to do with them. The Red Hot Chili Peppers just announced another tour as well next year with a very weird and wacky video, but that's got some good news attached to it as well. And finally, Ghost, after last week's conversation, have in fact released their first new song in over 2 years, looking like we're going to get a new album pretty soon. So yeah, without any further ado, let's carry on. So, first topic of conversation, Sabaton. So they released a couple of new singles over the course of the last 6 months, maybe a little bit less than that, 3 to 4 months maybe. We've got Metal Trilogy, which was fantastic, very long but strange, and Defense of Moscow and a few other ones. And we have found out that these tracks are not going to be on the new album that's coming out. They're completely unrelated. I would not even attempt to try and pronounce the names of the band members of Sabaton, but the lead singer did say that basically they got restless and they wanted to carry on producing music and they didn't have any way of doing that during the lockdown, so they just shit out some more singles. So that's nice to know. Yeah, Metal Trilogy was a strange one. I really liked it as a song, very energetic as they usually are, but there was a lot of references to other songs there. There was Breaking the Law, a couple of times in there, and a couple of riffs, Fear of the Dark references. It's an interesting song, definitely worth listening to if you kind of into your more rocky metal-y history. But either way, doesn't matter. New album, The War to End All Wars. It's a very, very Sabaton name, but that makes sense. And that's coming out on March the 4th next year. Surprisingly enough, it's still World War I themed. Fair enough to those guys. They've managed to pull the old Ailstorm, and they just picked one quite niche thing to sing about for a really long time, and they're still cranking out good content. So that's it's impressive, really. It's a testament to again, not going to say his name, but the singer's songwriting ability, just in terms of lyrics, more than anything else. Because most people write one song about a war and then they're tapped out. So fair play to them. This will be their first full album, their 11th album, in fact, since The Great War that came out in 2019, which almost took Sabaton away from us. I don't know how many of you remember when it happened, but just after the album released, they were filming a music video somewhere in the Middle East and had a horrific dune buggy crash, as one does, with all 5 members of the band in the friggin' dune buggy, and they very almost died. Multiple knocks and bumps and bruises. So either way, we're just happy that Sabaton are here. They're still making music, and the tour that they are coming out with, they've just announced who they're doing it with. And it's only freaking Lordi and The Who. I honestly couldn't think of a more appropriate combination. I'm surprised, honestly, that The Who are supporting Sabaton, just because they're a little bit more serious. And honestly, I would have said regarded a little better within the music community itself, just simply because power metal somewhat has a stigma attached on it because it's a little bit cheesy. But either way, it's really cool to see those bands collaborating together. I've wanted an excuse to see, well, all 3 of those bands for ages, so I'm definitely going to be trying to nab myself some tickets for that show. But yeah, new Sabaton album is good news and happy with me. So next on the docket, we've got the Red Hot Chili Peppers announcing their first tour in multiple years in a quite wacky, one would say, video, sort of like a fake news announcement where they're all wearing silly wigs and Flea's got a silly moustache on and demands coffee, etc. In typical slightly nuts Chili Peppers fashion. But the takeaway is new tour coming next year. They're playing with The Strokes, which is pretty good. They're playing with Beck, which is pretty good. And St. Vincent, who I've not personally heard, but I've definitely heard some other people talking about them, and they seem to be fairly well received, so that's cool with me. And interestingly enough, actually, I saw The Strokes supported by Beck 3 years ago in Hyde Park, London. So interesting that they're both on the ticket following with the Chili Peppers. But one of the more exciting things on this announcement was the presence of John Frusciante. Oh, John, we've missed you so much. And that's not a knock on Josh. I very much enjoyed, well, specifically The Getaway. I thought that was a very good album. There's a lot of stuff to enjoy on that. The Dark Necessities being an instant Chili Peppers classic, but other songs like Go Robot, Sick Love. There's a couple of really good tracks on that album. That being said, you just can't help but miss the glory days of having Frusciante really just writing those incredibly clever, quite simplistic, but incredibly clever those riffs, and also his backing vocals. Again, as much as Josh did his absolute best to fill those shoes, his tone of voice just simply wasn't the same, and that's fine. It's not his fault. And I do feel somewhat bad for the way that Josh seemed to have exited the band, but Frusciante's back. He was in the video. He still looked a bit nervous, but that's fine. He's allowed to look a little bit nervous. It's been, 10 years since he was with the Chili Peppers, which, when you say it like that, sounds like a really long time, but the Chili Peppers create music really freaking slowly, so that's only 2 albums. More interesting details to add to that is that they are, they've known for a while they've been working on new material ever since they announced the return of John, but with an interview with Chris Jericho on Talk Is Jericho, Rick Rubin talked about the fact that they were, doing their, working together again, which is nice because you had Danger Mouse produce the last album. Rick Rubin has produced pretty much every Chili Peppers album, pretty much every one of them actually, that being said, apart from the most recent one where they took it in a different direction. Not to say that it was worse, but with the return of John and their original producer, just feels like we might be likely to get something a little bit more energetic again, something a little closer to the roots of the Chili Peppers. So that's nice to hear. And Rick Rubin in that interview did say that they were finishing it now. That could mean a lot of things. The album could be done, mixed, ready to go, sitting in the pipeline. They're simply not doing anything with it until they go on tour. That happens. The tour is meant to be happening in January, I believe it starts. So that is hopefully the kind of time frame we can think to expect another album. They've also interestingly announced that they're probably going to be pushing and playing a show in Israel in 2023, for whatever that's worth. And the announcement a few days ago happened to land on the 30th anniversary of Blood Sugar Sex Magik, which is such a banging album. Very, quite formative on me as a kid, growing up with that. And so this is also good news. Moving swiftly on, we've got our first actual evidence of new Ghost material. I know in the last video we talked about them releasing their Enter Sandman cover, and that was very nice. I do enjoy. But Hunter's Moon came out literally days after I was talking about how we might get a new album soon, so that is really, really exciting. The song definitely lives up to any sort of previous music that they've released, and interestingly is going to be featured on the Halloween Kills soundtrack, which is cool. I love the Halloween franchise. The most recent of these reboots I actually really did enjoy. It's good return to form, I would say. And this is going to be part of the soundtrack to that. I have seen a few people on the internet who have already seen Halloween Kills for one way or another, legal or not legal, but they've seen it already, and they did say that the version of Hunter's Moon that's in the soundtrack is not quite the same as the version of the song that we got given on the music video and on Spotify, or whatever streaming platform you listen to it on, but that's fine. It usually happens. Honestly, as much as I love Ghost, and there's a very obvious thematic mashing up there of sort of like horror-ish kind of things and ideas, it still doesn't quite strike me as the right just the music I'd assume would go along with a Halloween film. If you think of the previous ones, you've got that, it's quite minimalist. It's almost Exorcist-y in its sort of like minimal piano-based creepiness, or a full whack, like sort of borderline metal band rock song. Doesn't sound quite in keeping, but hey, I love Ghost, I love Halloween, I really like this new song. The music video does bang. Freaky as hell, actually, if you think about it. There's this weird child with this mask, and it sort of turns its head the wrong way a few times, and you've got this mysterious figure walking through the woods, with which turns out later to be the new Papa. And then there's a fantastic scene, I'll probably put it up next to me, a screenshot of some sort, where he's got the mask of Michael Myers from Halloween in front of him as he dons the paint of his new persona, sort of almost paying homage to sort of masked men who've come before him. So it's thematically really interesting. So we'll very, very much be looking forward to seeing when the next sort of announcement, when the next singles are. If it's anything like the previous few albums, then we'll probably get 1, maybe 2 more singles before we get the full thing. And then, again, following the trend, hopefully we'll get a nice EP afterwards, because some of the best songs that Ghost have released have been on the EPs following the albums that came out. If you look at Square Hammer, which I think is, well, it's the song that got me into them, and honestly I think one of the songs that really pushed them into the mainstream. That song was on Popestar, which is the EP, and as I very incorrectly said last week, it's not 20 inches of Satanic Panic, 7 inches of Satanic Panic. Far more realistic and less emasculating to hear. That had Kiss the Go-Goats, it had Mary on a Cross, which I think is actually a sleeper, low-key, one of my favourite Ghost songs ever, actually. Mary on a Cross, really good song. So, yeah, hopefully that is the pattern we can expect. The tour starts in January with Volbeat that I spoke about last week, so hopefully this means that we'll get a full album, well, in a few months, really. Tobias, in an interview, did recently say that he spent almost the entirety of 2021 writing and making this album. He's a one-man music machine, so we'll hopefully get that soon. Leading on from that, we've got Tune of the Week, and unsurprisingly, possibly unoriginally, but it is what I've been obsessed with recently, so we'll go with it, is Hunter's Moon by Ghost. The video is definitely worth watching at least once. It's got some very... It's full of your classic expectations of Ghost tropes. You've got that nice piano line going in there, some interesting little parts rhythmically, some sort of like vocal and musical fills in gaps between the sentences really make the music far more interesting than if it was just a straight rinse and repeat chorus verse sort of structure. You got your typical sort of slow breakdown but sort of wailing guitar solo. It hits all of the beats that you'd expect from a new Ghost song. Really excited for where this is going to go, and yeah, we'll keep you informed if we hear any more about Ghost. So, thank you very much for watching, everybody. Hopefully this was somewhat informative, and at the very least, I didn't bore you. And yeah, I'll keep you informed, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya!